Welcome along to the very first Keith Andrews football show. We're going to be with you every Thursday lunchtime on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter. Please get in touch with us for the maiden voyage. Mr. Nathan Murphy has joined me. Nathan, thanks for coming in.
I'll hold your hand. If anything goes wrong, Keith, I'll be there for you.
You may well need to. Right, I want to kick off to a degree with the Ireland situation, the Martin O'Neill, the fiasco.
Really?
But I want to draw a line under it because it's getting a little bit boring, isn't it?
It's certainly dragged on. Like this time last week, we thought he was gone. We very quickly thought he was staying. He was gone. He was staying. I don't think it's fully over because Martin O'Neill hasn't done a proper interview. He's done an in-house interview, which we'll hear, but he hasn't actually sat down with journalists and gone through the timeline and picked apart how this all went and really dug deep into what his commitment is.
Are you
over
surprised
the next couple of years.
That wasn't done in the last 24, 48 hours when he did come out and release that little snippet of a video?
I don't know why they came out and released that video because essentially it was the same thing that he had said. Now, maybe he wanted to reinforce to the Irish nation that he is very excited about the Nations League, and who could have an issue with that? Perhaps, and listen, I'm maybe siding with Martin O'Neill here, he wanted to make sure that by the time he sat down with the journalists, or by the time he speaks to us here on Off the Ball, that everything is signed. That there's no point having that conversation if the first question is it signed? And he says no. We just don't know if we've moved on.
As it's gone on the week, if Martin was in a situation where he was tempted back into Premier League football, then I don't really have a problem with that because we don't know what floats his boat, what makes him tick, whether he's a little bit fearful of where he's bringing the team over the next 2 years going towards 2020. We don't know what he's thinking, but if that was the case, that's fine. My only issue is that there has to be a little bit of clarity on the situation, and he needs to come out and start to build up that little bit of trust back between himself and maybe the fans, because I do think there's a lot of fans disappointed in the way it's panned out over the last week.
I think it's going to be interesting how they get to that point of clarity, because there has been so much confusion between everybody involved that the FAI and Martin O'Neill are going to need to make sure that they do have the same line of answering the questions when they come forward, so that we're not here in 3 months' time picking holes and trying to pick holes in what happened over this week or so. Are you surprised that Martin O'Neill was so prickly with the criticism after the Denmark defeat? So it seemed he was happy to stay on, and then the criticism was so ferocious, and you were part of it yourself. But we did lose 5-1 in what at the time, let's not forget, was built up as our most important home qualifier ever. 5-1. Surely there was always going to be criticism, and he had to expect that.
Yeah, you have to expect it, and am I surprised? At times he shows that he's quite tetchy. With certain people interview him, certain people, and myself included, said a couple of comments and he's reacted to it. But for that particular game, I'll stand by that I was very, very disappointed in the performance. In the cold light of day, in the weeks after that game, I was looking back and I was trying to think, what would I have done if I was Martin O'Neill at half-time in particular? Probably even before that, but especially at half-time in terms of the substitutions. He was backed into a cul-de-sac. He didn't want to go after that game and think, well, what if? So he made his decisions, and they were bold decisions, and they've drastically backfired. He doesn't like criticism. It's the short end of it. I think he feels he does a really, really good job with the players that are available to him. And I must say, in the main, his reign, I think, has been quite a success. People will pick at the style of play and the switching of systems and maybe what goes on behind the scenes, but I can't really argue about, in terms of results and where he's brought us to a European Championship, very close to a World Cup. He's done a good job.
You, though, were very much part of the Trapattoni era, and like Trapattoni stayed on a year too long in the end, and it sort of felt like the Martin O'Neill era had come to a natural conclusion with the Denmark game, because 2016 had gone so well with the Euros and the way we'd started the qualification campaign, and then 2017 it faded so rapidly, and in a way it felt like that performance was coming. That is there a fear with all that's gone on, and like the general public don't really seem to care if he stays on or not, is certainly the feedback that we've been getting in. Yeah. That suddenly these Nations League games, you lose a couple of them, and like there's no buzz around, there's no interest in the national team, and again we're sitting in a year's time, maybe the FAI are thinking they've had enough of Martin O'Neill and we've wasted a year.
I don't think the FAI are thinking that. I think the FAI are firmly behind Martin O'Neill, and I would also be wary about, okay, if Martin had decided to leave or went to Stoke or what, had decided not to go on with for the next chapter in our history, where are we going? Who do we go to next? The obvious candidates, the likes of Mick McCarthy. Chris Hugh's been told there's no way he's leaving Brighton. I just don't know where we go for that. So in terms of, I do think it's a transitional period, and I think we're going to get onto that, where we talk about maybe our next squad for the Turkey game. There's not a vast amount of players out there that can come into the squad. I watch games in England every single weekend. There's not a vast options for Martin and his team to choose from. So in terms of getting us to 2020, I think he's the right man for the job.
That was the surprising part of certainly Luke Edwards' piece last weekend, where he said, so firstly, Roy Keane was very much trying to keep Martin with Ireland, but that one of the reasons they wanted to say was they're very excited about the challenge of these exciting young players that they can get together. And you're looking around going, do they know something we don't?
I know, and look, it's going to be a tricky period. I do think there is a need for slight transition and a few to come into the squad just to spark a bit of life and positivity in the thing. But let's just go and hear what John Delaney had to say yesterday and a little bit of a response to the last week.
In our opinion, Martin is very loyal. He's been very open to us in terms of approaches that have been made over the previous 4 years, no question about that. And I'll go back to the events here in November. It obviously took some time afterwards to consider the manner of defeat. Obviously it was a difficult night for Irish football, for the fans, for everybody involved in the game. But our next game wasn't until the end of March, and he took some time. He was in contact to say he wanted to take some time. He rang me on Saturday to say that he was going to meet Stoke on Sunday, which he did. I believe it was a far better financial offer. But he rang me after to say he had respectfully declined their offer, and he wanted to stay managing the Republic of Ireland. And he came in last night, agreed terms. His representatives will be in town on Monday in Dublin, and there will be a contract signed prior to the draw on Wednesday.
And that is the line in the sand under the last week. Right, moving forward, we've both done our 23-man squads as opposed to 48-man squads,
which it will be
in and around that. So this is for Turkey in March. Let's go goalkeepers.
My three.
Yeah.
Darren Randolph and Rob Elliott are our two first choice goalkeepers. I've thrown Kieran O'Hara, the Irish under-21 keeper. He's with Manchester United in there. Clearly he's not playing first team football, but he is playing with the United under-23s. And I look around and think Kieran Westwood is 33 right now. O'Neill clearly doesn't fancy him. So why not have your third choice keeper as somebody who you can actually use to give him a bit of experience around the camp? All right, he's probably not going to play a huge amount, but
when does a third choice goalkeeper play?
Exactly. And maybe if there is an injury to Darren Randolph, you can always call up Kieran Westwood at that stage if you don't feel O'Hara's experienced enough to throw him into a qualifier, which clearly he's not right now. But I think he's the type of, and there's not a huge amount of them, but he's one of the ones in the under-21s you could look at and think, let's get him in. And he's already been in as well. Let's get him in around all the time, see what he can learn off Randolph and Elliott.
I've gone Randolph, Elliott and Westwood purely because Elliott in particular, first team opportunities not cemented. Darren now, since he's gone to Middlesbrough, is the undisputed number one. Last year it was obviously a bit of a race between him and Adrian. And Kieran Westwood, I know he's injured at the moment, but I've done this squad as in everybody's available, everybody's fit. He's probably still the best or in the top three goalkeepers in the Championship. So in terms of consistency, reliability, but I would be well up for that in terms of Kieran O'Hara coming into we see him play that Norwegian game, didn't we, out in Tallaght only a few months ago, and he's got a nice commanding presence, very good with his feet. So he is certainly prospect-wise right up there, and I'm big on the integration of the players coming in, sampling what the environment is like for the senior team, and it just whets their appetite.
It's something Martin O'Neill hasn't done a huge amount of. Like Kieran O'Hara is one of the exceptions, and I think it was because he was probably a little bit short on numbers during one of the camps. But one of the questions and the criticism of O'Neill is like the lack of League of Ireland players, and you often hear there should almost be a quota system where he has to bring in 3 or 4 League of Ireland players to train. You've been in those camps. Does it make a difference if suddenly you have 3 or 4 guys who maybe aren't quite used to that level of training?
Makes a massive difference, really does, in terms of the quality of training can fall down. I'll even go back to when I was coaching. So you'd try and manipulate, if you were doing 2 types of passing drills, you would put the better passers together, because the tempo of the session goes up in keep ball sessions, in possession balls, little small sided games. If you have those 2-3 players that aren't of the level, you can get away with it with a younger player, maybe 1 or 2, but if there's a few in the squad, so I know there's been a bit of a push for that. I think in general the jump from League of Ireland to international football is far too great. The only player that I would have put into the Ireland squad while playing League of Ireland in the last few seasons would be Sean Maguire, in that purple patch that he had before he went to Preston. Seen him play, I think it was the second last game against Bray Wanderers. He was on a different planet to everybody else. So I think if you pick Sean Maguire, put him into the training session with the Ireland team, there wouldn't be an issue. But in the main, I think the jump is just too big.
Yeah, that is the side of it we never actually look at. When we talk about Darrell Horgan, Richie Towell back in the day, it's almost on the assumption they can settle into the game, whereas we never really think about what happens in the week beforehand and how they fit into those training sessions.
Defenders. So I've gone, again, everybody fit, everybody available. I've actually gone for 7 defenders. So I've gone Seamus Coleman, Shane Duffy, Kieran Clark. I've gone Declan Rice, but obviously he can play centre midfield as well. Kevin Long, Stephen Ward, and Matt Doherty. Matt Doherty, again, versatility. So I've gone for 3 full-backs as opposed to 4. So Cyrus Christie doesn't make my squad.
I have gone for 7 defenders. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of overlap, such as the lack of options facing Martin O'Neill. So I also have Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty will be my 2 right wing backs, as I would probably see it now. Stephen Ward and Greg Cunningham. I think Greg Cunningham's been around for so long, he definitely deserves
on my standby
a chance
list
to get fully back in. And I've just gone with the 3 centre-backs, Shane Duffy, Declan Rice, Kieran Clark. Now, I would like to see Ireland play with a back 3, so perhaps you do need that
extra
other option of Kevin Long. He's not playing a huge amount of football right now. Again, if there was a 24-man squad, he'd probably be the next one in. But I do think we need to start playing to our strengths, as we'll see. We have.
Do you think our strengths are at 3 at the back?
I think you want to find a way of playing Shane Duffy, Declan Rice, Kieran Clark. And Declan Rice was over at the Spurs West Ham game where he kept Harry Kane pretty quiet. Kenny Cunningham was with him with the under-19s. Kenny was saying, don't see him as a central midfielder. I know he's played in that role and saw him at Old Trafford at the start of the season come on and play half an hour as a holding midfielder, but he's very much a centre back. You want him facing the play, that's his role, that's where we want to play him all the time. And as part of a back 3, you also maybe can ease him in a bit. He's
a Rolls Royce. There's no doubt about it. I know some people at West Ham as well. They cannot speak highly about this lad's temperament. Obviously, within the FAI, his reputation is through the roof. I would be amazed if he does not get his first cap in March against Turkey. Absolutely amazed. And you're right. How do you get them into that? Because Kieran Clark and Duffy have formed a really good partnership. He's still very, very young. Very, very young.
I think we forget how young he is when you just look at the amount of other teenagers who are playing in the Premier League. He's the youngest player to start in the Premier League this season, and most of the other 18-year-olds who played in the Premier League, I think he's 19, possibly he's certainly 19 this week, but of the other 18-year-olds, they're getting 3-4 minutes here. And also he's managed to survive the change in manager,
managerial change,
which is huge.
More impressive, I would probably stick to a back
Neither of
4.
us have Cyrus Christie, do we?
No, I haven't got Cyrus Christie. You don't. No. I went purely on the versatility of, do you need, you need versatility within a squad. He certainly provides that. Declan Rice could obviously play midfield if needs be, but no, I've gone for Matt Doherty, and it's not just because he's on the show today either. Moving on to our midfielders. Okay, you bang away.
All right, I've gone with a lot of the regulars: James McCarthy, Robbie Brady, Stephen Ireland, back, Harry Arter, Liam Kelly, who's been around the squad.
Yeah, I've got Liam Kelly.
Jeff Hendrick, Callum O'Dowda, Ewan O'Kane, Conor Hourihan. Probably the obvious one I left out was David Myler.
I've left Myler out. I think when everybody's fit, and obviously we should touch on as well maybe the retirees that we maybe foresee. John O'Shea, Glenn Whelan, magnificent servants, both of them obviously.
John Walters.
John Walters. I've persuaded John Walters to come in my squad.
He's injured.
Because needs be.
Wes is a definite possibility, even with that
retirees,
the magnificence at Stamford Bridge last night.
Yeah, I think well, maybe the fact that Wes came into the equation so late in his career maybe might just see him go one more campaign, and he's the type of player that can play 15, 20 minutes.
Well, that's exactly
possibly.
And also, I guess when we're looking at these retarees age-wise, so Wes would be 38. I was actually looking at.
By the time
I was looking at it last night to see would he be the oldest player ever to play at the Euros. I think like Luther Matthäus, there's a couple of them slightly older, but he'd be right up there.
Yeah, well, he looks after himself, and in terms of runs on the clock, he has come into it that little bit later. So,
who have you got?
Right, I tell you what I haven't got. I haven't got Stephen Ireland.
What? Did you not watch him on Monday night? Old Trafford, running the show.
I did watch him, yeah. I did watch him. And look, what I should say first and foremost is I've read a lot on his road to recovery, the sacrifice that he's made. He was over in Qatar supposed to be for, I think it was 2-3 weeks. That turned into 3 months. He literally became a recluse in terms of getting back. So his dedication to get back from this injury has been very, very impressive. And look, I'll be the first to hold my hands up in terms of when he decided to have that little bit of a period out of the Ireland team that turned into an extended period. I was over the moon. Because
you
playing in
got
the
more game
position.
time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, well, listen, I don't think anybody watching will be surprised that you don't like ball-playing midfielders in the middle of the Irish midfield.
That's very, very harsh. Now I'm on this side of the fence. We weren't allowed play.
Yeah.
So no, look, I think, if it's how much that would be a popular decision if it did pan out. He's very different to what we have, because the way I would set up our midfield would be one holding midfielder, and that would be James McCarthy for me. And then I would have 2 in advance of that. Hendrick, Arthur, Brady, which depending on where you want to go with that. If you want to play with 2 and then a 1 in front, a more traditional type number 10 player, if Wes isn't in the squad, if he retires, I think Stephen Ireland is probably the only one that is suited to that. But obviously he has to stay fit. Obviously the management team need to see that, and he needs to see his kind of intentions. But he's just got back fit at club level. I'm sure his focus is.
Well, it was his first start in 2.5 years,
know,
but there was enough, and he missed a couple of chances. But there's even just the way when the ball arrives in the centre circle, he's willing to play those quick 1-2s. Very like Wes.
He's a very bright player.
So maybe we get to that stage where it is Stephen Ireland playing 70 minutes, Wes playing 20 minutes.
Yeah. The other two that maybe I've gone with Aidan O'Brien from Millwall, and I think he's had a really, really good season. He's bright, sharp, a little bit different. I haven't gone for many wingers in my squad, because I think James McLean, Robbie Brady kind of have those down. They're very, very reliable in terms of the performance. Liam Kelly is another one who is on both of our squads.
He's been in and around the squad. Like, he's not the biggest player, but he's playing week in, week out with Reading. Like, is he ready for that sort of step up? Yeah,
definitely. I think he's 22, 23 now, so he's not actually that young. He was very close to getting pied off by Reading under Brian McDermott because he very simply didn't suit the style. Jaap Stam was his saving grace. So he has to play in a particular style, but I've often said this about when players come from club football into the Ireland setup. You know, we would have had in my round players that would have wanted to play too much, and it just didn't suit the style that Trapattoni had at that time. And it's similar-ish to Martin. Like, when you come in, you have to make an impact in the way he wants. So if that's Liam Kelly playing little silly balls around his 18-yard box, Martin's not particularly going to like that. So if he does get the opportunity, which I think he might in the coming months, he needs to nail it.
So does he need to be at his best? Does Liam Kelly need James McCarthy and Harry Arthur either side of him?
Yeah, he plays one of the he plays one of the two central mid positions with James McCarthy or a holder behind them.
Right.
He's licensed to get forward, licensed to get in those little pockets. He's a very, very bright player. There's a couple of others who I should mention. Horan's not in mine. Alan Judge, I would love to get back fit.
If he gets back.
Yeah, love to get back playing. And the other one I want to give a little mention is Alan Brown at Preston. I've seen them 2 or 3 times this season. Spoke to Alex Neil about him. Very, very effective. Not particularly easy on the eye. So Liam Kelly for me is very easy on the eye in the way they play. Preston, they aren't a long ball team. It's been evolved since Simon Grayson left. But Alan Brown is actually playing as an advanced midfielder, and he affects the game by running in beyond, knocking the opposition out of their stride. He's strong. He's playing full of confidence, and he certainly should be in and around the squad, in my opinion, on current form.
You're probably a good example of this. So somebody like that, and part of Martin O'Neill maybe is thinking 2.5 years' time, who are the players who are still going to be playing, and we like it's impossible to guess. How important is it to actually have players who are full of confidence, and maybe giving Alan Brown 2 or 3 starts over the next 6 months actually takes his career to a whole new level?
Yeah, totally agree with you.
How much of that did you find?
Like you wouldn't believe. Him, Matt Doherty, players on the periphery, Aidan O'Brien, players on the periphery of it now see this period in our chapter going forward as a huge opportunity. And if they don't, there's something wrong with them. So club level, on that particular day when Roy Keane or Steve Guppy or Martin goes to watch the game, you have to shine. If I was them and I knew them what I know now, I would be getting my club manager to phone the representatives and just push my case.
Come watch me.
Come watch me, yeah. If you have that relationship,
and you need that sort of pressure on you as well, because I guess, listen, there's going to be huge pressure. We know what it means to them when they're lining out, whether it's Turkey or whether they're playing in a qualifier. If you can't do it, just knowing that Steve Guppy and Roy Keane are watching you down in the Championship, you're not going to be able to do it for Ireland.
Exactly. So nail that, but when you get the opportunity, you obviously have to take it.
Have you any strikers?
Yeah, well, look, I've persuaded John Walters and Darryl Murphy to give me another campaign.
Wow. What's the reason of John O'Shea and at centre back?
Yeah, look, I think we've got options there, whereas I think top end of the pitch, we're still struggling. Shane Long, Hogan, Shonny Maguire, nailed on for me. Let's go forward with them. Let's give them every opportunity, and just, you know, for that different type, if you need to go with a 2, 20, 30 minutes, certainly not as starters at this stage of their career, but Walters and Murphy.
I didn't have Walters and Murphy. I think, again, and you'll know better, there's a good chance they may hang around because they love playing for the country, particularly with Darryl Murphy. It's taken them so long. In fact, for both of them, it's taken them so long to get involved that if they're still playing club football, well, this is probably the highlight for them. Like, you're hearing John Walters before this injury today, the link with a move to Sunderland. Like, going off on the international break is going to be the highlight of his every 2 or 3 months. So if John Walters wants to play, he's in my squad every time. Like, I have James McLean down as one of the strikers. My 4 would be Long, McLean, Hogan, Maguire. Outside of that, there's nobody. Like, I know Kevin is a big fan of Rhys Gregor Cox with the under-21s, and even though he hasn't had a real chance with QPR over the last couple of years, felt that, yeah, you know, I think if he hangs in there, maybe he might get his chance. He's moved to Woking over the last 10 days or so, so he's going to have to start right at the beginning. Yeah, but not that that's okay, but we've a lot of prodigious talent at 16s, 17s, 19s level within the FAI. But the jump to get to first team level and play consistently is ginormous. It really is. So those players aren't ready, certainly for our senior team. A lot of them aren't ready for the 21s. We just need patience with them. But we can only do so much in terms of the FAI fan. They need the right type of guidance at club level to go to the right club, to bounce on, and then hopefully be available to us in the coming years, because there's certainly right now real talent at underage level, but I keep saying it's just a huge jump to get playing regularly. They probably need, and maybe this already happens, like, you look at somebody like Robbie Brady, he would be such a good example. Maybe now while he's injured he can do this, go in with the under-21s and say, listen, I was at Manchester United, my life was planned out in front of me, I was going to be the big superstar, and it didn't happen for me at United. I had to go back, I had to start again. And there's probably a lot of guys, like we hear all the time, you look at the under-21s, there are players at Liverpool, there's quite a few players at Liverpool in the under-21s that I just think of someone like Conor Masterson, who I think is still with the 19s, but is playing week in, week out with the Liverpool under-23s, middle of midfield. Like, it's going to be very difficult for him to break into that Liverpool midfield, even if Jurgen Klopp does like him, gets him into training squads. So his next step is the most important one, as to what club he goes to and what sort of attitude he has when he goes to that club. So,
but there's different routes to get there, and you know, you step back to go forward. One player now, which we're going to chat to in a moment or so, Matt Doherty, League of Ireland route. There's so many routes to get to where you need to go. The key ingredient is perseverance and having that ability to kick on and kick on. So speaking of which, we're joined by Matt Doherty, Wolves player, playing so well in the Championship. Matt, welcome.
You're initially obviously disappointed because we was on quite a good unbeaten streak. But But at the end of the day, now we can just concentrate fully on the league. We're 10 points clear now, and obviously look to extend that as much as we can. But the game in general last night, we started off quite slowly. Actually, didn't get going at all in the first half. I know we made quite a few changes from the normal league team, but then second half got into it more. Made a couple of changes, brought on Jota and Bonatini. Made a big difference. Obviously got the goal. But then we just conceded and we weren't able to get back into it. It was, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I want to get on to the team and the style in a little bit, but I want to bring it right back to when that move happened to Wolverhampton Wanderers. You were playing for Bohemians. I believe you were still working for your dad at the same time. Pre-season friendly against Mick McCarthy's Wolves, and he obviously seen something that he very much liked that day. Was it on your agenda to be going to England, did you think? Or did you have aspirations to go across, or did it come out of the blue?
No, I always had aspirations. I had been, as a 16-year-old, I had been on many trials, double-figure trials in terms of teams, but it just never quite clicked for me. I'll admit now that I'd never really performed when I had gone away. Yeah, you're right, I was working with my dad doing carpet and upholstery cleaning and rug cleaning. It was quite tough. But I mean, I quite enjoyed it, going around with my dad every day, and the chats that we used to have in the van of, still had ambitions for me to go away, but it would have been more through, because as I was getting older, more through the League of Ireland setup. I still thought I could get away that way.
Yeah, I want to touch on that, Matt, as well, a bit in terms of the underage. And did you feel at that stage when you were 16, 17 that potentially you'd missed the boat? I know there's been a lot done in the last couple of years with the underage structure, and it's probably better. It's certainly better now than it was when I was playing at that age. I felt if I didn't get across the water at 15, 16, then I certainly would have missed the boat, because after that, very few go. But you are now one of those examples, and having worked in the underage setup with the FAI for the last couple of years, they do have the option now of staying further in the education and going over that little bit more mature, maybe.
Yeah, well, obviously, initially when you're 16, you see people your age, Robbie Brady, Jeff Hendricks, go away, and others who obviously have come back now, haven't quite made it. Yeah, you do start to think, well, is it gone for me? But like I said, I always had a belief that I could get there through the League of Ireland. Didn't come as quick as I thought. When it came at 18, I thought it would be more 21 when it might happen 22. So yeah, there is more of an opportunity now. When I went at 18, I was past the homesickness. That wasn't an issue at all. I was desperate to get over. I was more mature, having been around with my dad in the van, seeing what real work was like. So when I went over at 18, then I really tried to grasp the opportunity when it came, which helps when you see, when I'm going around with my dad, yeah, I see all the work that you have to do. So when you go over there, it really makes you think, I don't want to give this chance up at all. Yeah,
look, I totally agree with you. How much of an influence and how much of a help were the Irish lads that were already over there? Obviously, Wolves has a huge kind of connection with Irish players. The likes of Kevin Doyle, Stephen Hunt, Kevin Foley, Wardy was there at the same time as well, wasn't he? Mick, obviously the manager. Did that help with your kind of introduction into the club? Did they help you out?
Yeah, it helped unbelievably. You even had boys, Darren McCary, Anthony Ford, they're my age, and even a couple of boys younger. But it was, them boys, they're like Hunty, Doyle, they welcome anybody in. They don't have any kind of ego about them at all. Even now, I'm still friends with, as you know, to Hunty to this day. We've kept in contact quite a bit. So yeah, they were a massive help. Even the manager himself, obviously Mick, brought me over, helped me in many ways. So it was all good from their behalf.
And speaking of Mick was your first, obviously, and first of many. You've gone through quite a few. And look, the championship, being the championship, that is very much the nature. But you've gone through Mick, Solbakken, Saunders, Lambert, Walter Zenga. You must have taken a lot from those managers. But when the new manager comes in the door, do you think I have to tweak the way I play because he may want me to play a different way? Or have you simply kind of thought, no, I need to be Matt Doherty. These are my strengths, and this is what I stand for? Is a bit of a mixture, maybe?
I've never tweaked how I've thought about playing. No manager has come to me and said, "Listen, you need to think about your defending a little bit more," because obviously I like going forward. They've never said to me, "You need to do this, you need to do that." They've just kind of let me get on with it, and obviously a few of them have coached me along the way in terms of a little improvement here or there positionally, but none of them have got in the way of me trying to play my natural game at all. So yeah, I've been quite fortunate that way.
You spoke about a position. I read an article about you, I think it was around this time last year, and you spoke about that again. So is that something you're conscious of? And I know the way Wolves play is very, very attacking, and this year you've had to tweak it in terms of you're a wing back now, a right wing back. Last year you were playing a lot as left back in a back four. So in terms of that positioning, it does change obviously in the system you're playing at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Obviously I'm a lot more forward, but in terms of me defensively, I was never an out defender growing up. I was more of a forward player. So I don't have that natural defending instinct all the time. So just say a cross comes in, the keeper looks like he's going to catch it. I'm already kind of running outwards, thinking we're going to break here, instead of thinking what if he drops it. That's happened to me a few times. So that's why defensively I've always got to switch on and always got to be thinking.
Matt, where did that come from? Did that come from an early age in terms of your apprenticeship? You were learning at Kevin's, Bohemians. Was that early days at Wolves? Because I'd certainly imagine someone like Mick, who's he's very focused as an ex-defender, that would be something that he would be very, very particular about. Yeah,
it was all younger age. I used to be a striker. I used to play midfield, right wing. I never used to really play at the back until I got to about 17, 18. So it's just, I guess, just habit over the years, growing up, just thinking I want to score goals. And obviously you can see that part in my game in terms of going forward, which I enjoy obviously a lot. But just got to stay focused in terms of the defending, to not always switch off, which I have done in the past.
I want to move on to this season then, and the style of play this year. Nuno Espirito Santo comes in to Wolves, and as you know, I see a lot of the Championship. He came into the same bracket as Thomas Christensen at Leeds and Daniel Farke in terms of relative unknowns. Okay, his CV was more impressive in terms of the clubs that he's managed, Valencia being the biggest one. What were your first impressions? He obviously has done a magnificent job, but in those first few days, first few weeks in pre-season, what were your impression of him?
Well, I was probably like everybody, a bit sceptical, not sure what to expect, because we've had the record of having foreign managers come in and not do so well was as relevant in terms of the previous managers. So yeah, I was a bit cautious to see how he'd approach it, but you could tell early doors that he knew what he was doing. The way he came in and started changing things on the training ground straight away, changed our shape straight away. We went at it from day one in pre-season, and we've not gone away from it since. And you know, when you're changing the shape with new players, especially in pre-season, it doesn't always come off. And he had the belief to just stick with it. I mean, we played Shrewsbury in pre-season and we had a tough time. They beat us, and the shape didn't look too clever then, and we just stuck with it into the first games of the season, and eventually it's all paid off.
Now, anybody that hasn't seen a lot of views this season might not be fully aware of the style of play. We've already mentioned you play as the right wing back, very, very high, very, very adventurous, very, very attacking. It's a back three, and I don't think people realise in terms of the core of that team. You've obviously brought in a lot of players. Neves for big money, 15 million. Last season was held at Costa for 13 million. But there's a core of British, Irish players, yourself, Ruddy, Conor Cody. I know Danny Batth hasn't played a lot this season, but he's the club captain. How important has that spine of the team been in terms of integrating all the foreign imports?
It has been. Like you said, we've got Ruddy, Ryan Bennett, Danny, Cody, even Barry Douglas, who had a stint up in Scotland. Players who are familiar with British football, familiar with going through winter playing game after game, where the foreign boys are more used to having time off. So just helping them in terms of preparation, how we would prepare for a Saturday, Tuesday, where they might not be used to it, is very important. And the manager can see that. Obviously, if he didn't see that, then he probably would have brought in more players to fill them positions. So I think in the Championship it is quite important to have a British Irish base.
I must confess, going back maybe a couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, after you'd made that really good start and you started to get into a real rhythm, and the performances, obviously the results follow, but the type of performance and how well and easy it was on the eye, I thought, well, your only downfall for me could be if the foreign lads who I don't know personally, who I don't see behind the scenes, if that maybe they might be a little bit solar powered, so the clocks go back, the yellow balls come out, could they deal with that? But for me, they've answered every question. I've been really impressed with teams that have tried to maybe bully you, tried to put you on the back foot, try and alter how you play. They've certainly come through those tests, haven't they, over the last couple of months? Yeah,
with absolute flying colours. I mean, just look at the unbeaten run we've been on. It's come all through winter as well. And when you say getting bullied, we got bullied against Cardiff early on. And they beat us, and then after that, man just said, let's make sure this never happens again. And I think all the players realised and thought, you know what, I'm up for the fight here. And they thought a lot of the games would be like that. It's not panned out that way. But I mean, there will be times again when we play Cardiff away, when we play Villa away, that it's going to be a dogfight, and I think the boys are up for it.
Moving on to international football, I can sense, and I've been in your predicament where maybe you've been frustrated that the opportunity hasn't come along. Do you now see this transitional time that the team is going to go through with friendlies on the horizon? Do you see it as a big opportunity to stake a claim in the squad?
Yeah, of course. I think they're playing Turkey in March. I've seen an opportunity if I can get in the squad to maybe get a cap and show what I can do. I'm doing everything I can at club level to try and put myself in the window for it. So I'll just keep just doing that. And if it happens, it happens, and if it doesn't, then so be it. It's international was obviously tough to get into a squad, considering there's quite a few players to choose from. But if I get in there, I'll back myself to perform and do good.
Well, I'm with you in terms of, I'm not quite sure how much more you can do. You're playing in the best team in the Championship. You've been very, very consistent. I think year on year you're improving in terms of your performances. Yes, there is competition there with the likes of Seamus, obviously coming back from injury, Cyrus Christie, Stephen Ward, but surely your versatility as well. I think you're clearly confident that you can play in a green shirt.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I've never ever doubted what I can do. I'm not big-headed or cocky or anything like that. I just have confidence in my own game. And like you said, I can play either side. I played left back for 2 years before this season. Season started, so I'm quite comfortable at either side, and I enjoy both sides. It's not like I'm disgusted at the thought of having to go onto the left-hand side. I quite enjoyed playing there. So yeah, you would think that would stand me in good stead going forward. You've
been named in plenty of squads. Don't always make the final cut, such as the enormity of some of the squads that Martin chooses to go with. When you were in the squad and you did train with the team and you were part of it, did it whet your appetite that you can be part of that, you can be a key player for us going forward in the next campaign?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I can play in this team. That's how I feel. And you're just thinking, once you get a bit of confidence that you're in the squad, in the team, and then your game can really come out. It's like anything in sport, confidence is everything. So once you get in and get comfortable with the squad, then a lot of good things can happen.
Matt, listen, thank you very, very much for joining us on the Keith Andrews Football Show. Wish you the very best of luck. Hope you get promotion, and I sincerely hope you're wearing that green jersey very soon.
Cheers, Keith. Thanks for having me.
That was Matt Doherty, who I caught up with just before we came on air about an hour ago. So he's made both of our squads. I've certainly been impressed with what I've seen of him and his development over the last 18 months to 2 years in particular. This year he's getting a lot of the headlines because of how well Wolves are doing, but you can understand his frustrating the fact that he hasn't made a dent in the squad yet, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I often feel sorry for all these players that get named in the 40-man squads, because quite often what we'll do is we'll hear the squad, we'll see a new name on it, we might ring them that day and say, any chance to come on the show tonight? And you talk to them about the honour of being called up. I remember we did it with Conor Howard, and like he was, you know, in his thick Cork accent talking about this incredible honour to get called up. And then 3 weeks later, the squad was reduced to 26, and there's no sign of Conor Howard in it. Now, eventually, he did get his goal, but like that's been the problem for Matt Doherty as well. His versatility, you would sense, is going to get him into an awful lot of squads. And when Martin O'Neill, and we touched on this, we just have to look at the two squads we picked, with the exception of Declan Rice. There's really nobody under the age of 22, 23 who is probably going to get into this squad for the game against Turkey, or even over the next year. The under-21s, they just don't have enough players playing enough first-team football, and the under-21s are going along nicely. You just leave them there and hope that they can do something with their club career. But it is those guys like Matt Doherty, like Conor Howard, like Liam Kelly, players who've been in and around, have been named in those extended squads. I'd say they're the ones Martin O'Neill is really looking at, as you say, to take advantage over the next 6 months.
They have to take advantage of it, and from his point of view, you could sense that kind of edginess about, look, I have to have club football first and foremost nailed down, and he's right, because after that he can't control what Martin chooses to do, who Martin chooses to pick in terms of squad starting 11s.
But he's done that though. Like, you look at the investment that has come into Wolves, he's probably the sole survivor in that squad. Now the big test for Matt Doherty is going to be, you got to assume Wolves are going to go and spend 100 million quid next summer at least when they get promoted to the Premier League. Does he survive that?
Well, it's going to be tough, isn't it? We've still got to speak to Megan Campbell, who I caught up with earlier in the week at my old primary school Wirrit, on the national five-a-side scheme with Spar. In terms of the show, we've had a couple of comments in. Facebook comment from Lorcan McGrath, who's wondering, is this a new daily show? No, it's not a daily show. I haven't got the time.
Should be a daily show. I haven't got the time.
And Nathan hasn't got the patience. It's going to be every Thursday lunchtime, Lorcan, and also Molly on Twitter would bring in Scott Hogan and young Liverpool player Corey Whelan into the senior squad. I think Scott Hogan, certainly in both of our squads, I totally agree with that. But yeah, I think it'll be a no-brainer. He's just got back into the goals as well at Aston Villa. But in terms of Corey Whelan, plays for the 21s, which we've watched. Some of them players, a lot of those players aren't ready. They won't make a mark at senior international level, and it will be unfair to put them into that type of standard for their development and what it will do for their confidence.
Yeah, I think we need to get away a bit from these ridiculous calls for under-21s to get called into senior squad on the basis of what? Like Corey Whelan, he's with Liverpool, he's captain of their under-23 side, but he's just gone on loan to Yeovil. So there wasn't a rush of Premier League clubs looking for him, there wasn't a rush of Championship clubs really looking for him. As you say, but he needs to go now. He has just signed a new contract at Liverpool as well. He just turned 20 and
by the way, that's fine in terms of going to Yeovil as the stepping stone. We've seen it with Harry Kane, Leyton Orient, Norwich, Leicester. The loan moves are an integral part, in my opinion, of a player's development, rather than just playing U-team football and the 23s football, which in my opinion is false. It doesn't give them a sense of what it takes to make it in the big battle world of football. So that's fine, but then it depends on where he goes now. So he needs that stepping stone. So hopefully these players that we're speaking about in the under-21 levels in the coming years get to a level where they're available for Martin or whoever it is at that stage.
100%.
They can pick.
Like, international football is the end zone. That you cannot turn Corey Whelan from a Liverpool under-23 into an Ireland senior international over 2 get-togethers. He's got to do it himself over the next couple of years.
Okay. Just to remind you, we'll be back next Thursday to see us out. We've got Megan Campbell, who I've already mentioned, very impressive young lady. Nathan, I'd like to thank you.
Cheers, Keith. Well done.
Giving up your time. Thank you for this one. And
you survived.
Just about. And we'll hand you over to Megan. Thanks for joining us.
Was you in this school?
Yeah, this is my school.
Is it?
Yeah.
No.
Do you not know that? That's why we're here.
No.
Hi, this is the Keith Andrews Football Show, my first ever interview. Megan Campbell, thanks for joining me.
No worries, thanks for having me.
Irish international, Man City legend already.
Yeah.
Right, we've bad news. December, you had the ACL done, anterior cruciate ligament. How was it? How did it happen, first and foremost?
I was playing in a Champions League game, home leg round of 16 against LSK Kvinner, and second half been playing well, and I've gone to step in to make a tackle with my left foot, and I planted my right foot to do so, and unfortunately my right knee didn't bend and just gave way.
And you've had the operation 5 weeks ago.
Yes, 5 weeks tomorrow.
Yeah, and the rehab's gone quite well.
Yeah, it's going good. Yeah, thankfully it's a slow process to begin with, which it always is, as they say. But hopefully, come the 3-month mark, I'll be able to do a lot more and be back on the grass.
My path, I would say, is very different to your path in terms of you're obviously getting towards the prime of your career. So I played Stella Maris Low League. How was it for you growing up as a girl in Drogheda playing football? Was it more difficult for you than it would have been for the boys, for instance? Yeah,
definitely. I think, well, for most girls my age, I think I could say it for all of them, where we all started with boys. There was not many girls teams about, and for me, I started underage with boys and I played all the way up to under 14s with them until the rule came in where girls obviously couldn't play with boys anymore. And then thankfully they made a team in Drogheda called Boyne Rovers for the girls team, where I've joined them, and from under 16s played with them for a few years and moved about around Drogheda and played with Moneymore and then played with Drogheda United for a year.
Then you ended up at Francis?
Yeah, then I went to St Francis. So basically I had a decision to make of to whether I wanted to go further in my career or to just play football. And me and my dad and family, mum sat down, and I decided to go to Dublin, which took a lot out because obviously dad had to travel with me a lot and drive me everywhere, but it paid off in the end, thankfully.
Was that a big decision? Like what age would you have been really serious about football and maybe, okay, this is a path that I could possibly take?
About 16, 17 years old, yeah, definitely. When I've gone to St Francis and seen the level that I was at and the level that I could have got to and aspired to go to. And I think at the time I was with under 15s. I played under 15 schools level, and I was in at about the 17s and 19s with national team, and it is something that I wanted to take serious and to have as a career.
Yeah, and so for me it was my family very much as well, education. Now it doesn't so much happen in boys football, but it's very different for the girls, isn't it? So you had the opportunity to go to America on the scholarship, and I've spoke to you about this before. You loved it over there, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. When I went over in April for they call it an official visit for 2 days, I went over and I seen the college and stuff, and I just couldn't turn it down. The opportunity that they had given me and offered to me, I couldn't say no, and I enjoyed every minute of being over there. I was there 2.5 years, 3 seasons, and we were really successful, and it's something that's definitely helped me as a player mature. And then obviously, as you said, I got my degree from it as well. So. And
how did they balance the education side of it out with the training?
So basically you had college from 9 till 2 every day, and then from 2 till 4, half 4, you couldn't do any schoolwork. So basically even if there was classes available, you weren't able to take them in that period of time, because we would have training at 3 o'clock every day in the dead heat in Florida. So as you can tell, I acclimatised well. No, definitely not. It took me 2 years and it still wasn't right.
Really?
But
was it that big of a factor?
It was definitely hot. Like, I think spending 2.5 years away, I wanted to just come home and be closer to family for a while, and to let them be able to come and see my games regularly if they wanted, and make it more easier that way. And when I came home in December, I had no idea that in February I'd be at Man City.
How did that come about? Like, how did you have dreamt that type of move was on the cards or possible?
No, definitely not. I didn't expect it at all. And I think over Christmas I just enjoyed the Christmas and finishing over in America. Not too much with family. But come January, February, I was back training again, and they had got video of me from being at Florida State. They've seen it on YouTube, thankfully, with the internet now. There's access to everything, so they were seeing that, and they called me up and asked me if I wanted to go and train with them for the week. And when I went over, I spoke to Nick and I spoke to Gav, and Nick had just said that, listen, we want you, but we want to see if you enjoy it and you fit in and you want to be here, basically. And I think I went home on the Sunday, and on the Wednesday I had flown to Abu Dhabi and signed my contract over there, so I couldn't ask for a better start, basically.
So it was a bit of a stark contrast, isn't it? You've gone that route, Drogheda, Francis, then you've gone up in the States, and now next of all you're at one of the biggest football clubs in the world. That's just fairy tale stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's unbelievable. And the programme that they've put in place from 2014, where they've turned professional on a full-time basis with the women's team, and to see where it is and where it's at now, it's phenomenal. Like last year winning the treble, and hopefully win the Continental Cup now again. We're in the final again. So it's just the progress from 2014 to now. When you look back on it, we do it as a team sometimes, and just to see where we've all come from and to where we are today, and it's phenomenal. But I think for every young player looking in on it, as a girl, it shows them the path that you actually can succeed. And obviously,
how important is that we have people like you, women like you now playing and being that, you know, role model? And it's probably a bit unfair to throw you because you're still only 24. But yeah, there's girls that aspire to be you now. You are playing from the biggest football clubs in the world, whereas maybe when you were growing up, did you have that type of role models, or was it mainly the men's team? Was there as much profile around it when you were growing up, whereas now there's certainly a lot more profile around the women's game, isn't there?
Yeah, the profile has definitely grown. I think back in the day when I was at that age looking over it, there was a lot of male footballers that I'd look up to, especially at national level. But then you had the likes of Arsenal who were doing phenomenally, and the likes of Emma Byrne and Keira Grant and Yvonne Tracy, they were all over there in Niamh Fahey. And, you know, as the game grew, obviously more girls went abroad and noticed that, you know, if I want to continue success, then unfortunately you have to leave Ireland and go to these professional clubs abroad. And but it's an honour for me to be able to say that I'm a role model for young girls to be able to look up to, and to hopefully one day be able to be in my boots and playing at Man City.
I have to ask you about Man City, the men's senior team. What we've seen this year, they've lost their first game. It's been phenomenal. Do you get to go on? I know he's very guarded in terms of his training sessions, isn't he, Pep Guardiola? But do you get to see that, or do you have any interaction, or do you go and watch the first team play? We don't have any interaction with them off the field, unless you have appearances and stuff like that as such. But we go as much as we can. Most of us will go on a Sunday if we don't have a game, or if our game's before theirs or their game's before ours. Sometimes just depends on the situation, but I'll try and get to a game as much as I can. I've been to a lot this season, and it's unbelievable to see the football that they're playing right now. I've certainly never seen anything like it at Premier League level. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's great too when you see the under-8s and the under-10s, not only the first team men's, but when you're seeing the under-8s and under-10s playing the same style of play the whole way up.
For the girls, and then the women's team the exact same.
Yeah, definitely. It's the same philosophy the whole way through the club. Managers might have their different styles as to how they input certain things, but it's the same tactics put in throughout the teams. And it's obviously great that the men's are doing phenomenally well right now for the young boys and even young girls to see that too. Yeah.
I always had the greatest respect for some of my international teammates who would have played at, you know, John O'Shea at Man United, or whether it was Duff or when he was playing and winning the Premier League. I always had a great respect for them when they came and played for Ireland. Obviously, we didn't have the players that they would have had at Manchester United or Chelsea. How does it differ? How is it for you then when you come and play for Ireland? Obviously, we've had the change of manager in the last year or so, and we've gone through a really good period in terms of good results, no more so than that game, which unfortunately you had to watch a couple of days after you injured against the Dutch. How does it change? How do you kind of tweak the way you play in terms of coming back into the Ireland fold?
I think at City I'm quite young still in regards to like the age, like throughout the team. But when I come into national team, I'm one of the older girls, and I think I'm now looked upon as a role model for the 16, 17-year-olds who are coming in, and it's great to see them coming in and getting that experience of being around me and other players who are playing at top level, and know that they can aspire to still be there even though they are 16, 17 and within the national first team. They still have a long career ahead of them, and it's great to just, they ask you questions as to what you're doing and how's the situation like and stuff like that, and it's just great to be able to give them positive feedback about women's football and to where we all are now. And
what's achievable for us as a nation with the women's team and the girls team? What can be improved? I know there's been a bit of negativity in terms of headlines and tracksuit gate and all that going back a year, and look, I've been there as well, trust me, it's not just in the women's, it was in the men's as well. What can be improved in terms of the structure for women's health? Because we've seen it now with the national leagues for the boys coming through, national 15s, 17s, 19s, soon to be 13s next few years. Is that happening for girls?
Yeah, it's happening, but I think it's a lot slower of a process than it is or was with the men's. I think it's still got a long way to go. It's got obviously the Women's National League, which has progressed over the last few years, don't get me wrong, it's come a long way. But I think there needs to maybe be that gap where between 19s to then playing first team, if you don't make it or you're not able to play, you're not in the starting 11, or you've got a big squad and you're not getting games on a weekend, to be able to have those younger players have that gap in between of a league possibly where they're still getting their football and still being able to progress and adapt. But don't get me wrong, the FAI have put a lot into the women's game, and even through this schools program that we're doing now, like over 11,000 young girls playing football. Like, yeah, it's phenomenal to see the numbers rise and rise and rise constantly.
To go back to the senior team, women's team, put yourselves in a really good position to qualify. The confidence must be through the roof, is it? Yeah, definitely. I think when Colin came in, there was a lot of positivity, and he said, I was saying this before, like one of his first meetings, and when I was involved with the team with him for one of the first times, he said, I want to be in France, but I don't want to be there on a holiday. Right. He said, I want to be there as a manager on the sidelines while you're all on the pitch and playing in the World Cup. And so it's obviously great that your manager has that belief in you, never mind you as players. Obviously, as a player, you want to always make a finals tournament, and it's something you always want to achieve, especially in international in your career. But I think to have that positivity and the background staff and everyone, wanting the same goal. So he's instilled a real knowing that we succeed, within the squad that you can achieve. Yeah, definitely. No more so than that 0-0 draw away to the Dutch. What a magnificent result. Yeah, it was phenomenal. I think it's obviously some people might critique the way we were playing, or the very defensive structure that we had set in place, but we had a game plan, we stuck to it, and we got a draw. And in the end, I think when you look back on it in 10 years' time, having hopefully qualified for our first major tournament, people don't see the 90 minutes that you play, they just see the result. And so we're obviously grateful to take that point. If you had given us that before the tournament started, you would have taken it with both hands. So hopefully we'll just push on now, and if not playoff, qualify outright. I want to ask you about the FA Cup final. Not many Irish players have played in an FA Cup final, and I read an article the other day about when you were listening to the team being called out, you weren't sure whether you'd be in the squad with you just come back from injury, but the manager clearly has a lot of faith in you, and to play, what was that like to hear your name and then to actually play in an FA Cup final at Wembley? Yeah, it was absolutely nuts. I think it was the Saturday we trained in CFA before we travelled down to London, and he was going through the team to obviously then go through the set pieces and stuff, and he's gone across the back four, and he said KB, Lucy, Steph, and then he said Megan, and I've like my heart just dropped. I couldn't believe it. They didn't hear any of the rest of the team, no, did you? I actually didn't. The rest of the team was just gone straight over my head, but that opportunity, then I went straight on the phone to Dad and said, Dad, I'm starting. Like, I'm not even in the squad. Like, I'm starting. And so it was obviously a great opportunity for the family to come over and see me play. And Dad flew over, and my cousins and my uncle from England all came and watched. And I think a big moment for me before the game had even kicked off was when we were out lining up, and in 35,000 people in the stadium, my dad was standing there with an Irish flag, and that for me just was unbelievable. Like, that feeling that went through me to see an Irish flag in Wembley Stadium, and to not only be representing myself and my family and the club, but to be doing it for my national team as well was obviously something very special. And win it, obviously, we should stress. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I snuck the tricolour in under my shorts, and when I got to the top and wanted to lift the cup, I definitely had that on show. But yeah, it was a phenomenal opportunity for me, and hopefully I'll get many more in the future. Megan, thank you very much for joining us on the first ever Keith Andrews football show. Wish you the very best of luck with your injury. Thank you. And hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. Thank you, appreciate it.